All right, now I'm very excited to welcome back one of our favorites and most knowledgeable guests when it comes to handicapping college basketball, Mr. Kyle Hunter from HunterSportsPicks.com. You follow Kyle on X at Kyle Hunter Picks. Kyle, well, here we are again, my man. The madness is here. How the heck are you doing this week?
Man, I love this time of the year. You know it. March Madness is my favorite time of the year. Conference tournaments are fantastic too. All day basketball coming up, Kiev. We're going to have lots of games going on all throughout the afternoon, evening, late into the night. Love this time of the year. It's fantastic. I also think it can be a really good time of the year for bettors to try to find some value. So looking forward to trying to find some value in these conference tournaments and the late season.
Absolutely. Amen to that. I am ready for some fun, man. It's just crazy how fast things go nowadays. I think the older we get, the quicker we feel the age. Maybe that's what it is. But hell, I can go a whole nother month of watching and gapping college basketball before the tournaments, even though I love and look forward to this time of year. It is what it is. Bobby Newport checking in. What's up, Bobby? Good day, gentlemen. Excited to hear a little hoops being talked about. Us too, my man. Us too. And looks like sneakily his favorite time of the year is hoop season too. So cool. Thanks, Bobby. Both of us, all three of us are the same. What's funny is that it's not just the betting, it's the games that we like to play, right? It's just fun having a bracket, but there's other stuff out there. And Kyle, I thought I saw a tweet from you that you might be reviving something you've done in the past.
Yeah, last year I did a March Madness bankroll contest. I think I might do the same thing again this year, at least something similar. I kind of like it because I love the brackets. That's fantastic. I'll fill out a bunch of those brackets for sure. But I want to do something a little bit different too, to have a couple different things going on. So, if you want to fill out multiple brackets and then also join my March Madness bankroll contest, that'll give you two different things to look at. Also, if the bracket gets burned up early, then you can focus on the other. But I know Kiev does a good bracket contest as well. So you can fill out Kiev's bracket contest and also do my bankroll contest, have a couple little things different going on. See if you can get some cash prizes as well.
Absolutely, man. That is so fun. And you do such a great job putting these on. And of course, we'll have our side of things too. And it's fun to have the kids. I'm sure my son will fill out one and your son will fill out one. They're really happy until they lose, and then they're completely out. But that's fine. I'm not going to let them get too contrarian this year. I think it might be a little top heavy when we get to bracket time to fill them out. So, let's talk about late season capping. It's a little different out there than regular season. Can you explain to our listeners what are some of the things they should look out for?
Yeah, shout out to Duck, really good handicapper in his own right as well. March Madness is fantastic time of the year. Thanks for being on here, man.
What's up, Josh?
Regular late season, the games that don't matter, Kiev over the total has done really well. So if you take two teams that are probably kind of packing it up, this, Kiev, the teams that don't really have anything to play for late in the season, they're going to just kind of circle the wagons and try to win the conference tournament. Those last couple games of the regular season don't really matter to them. So those games have done really well to the over. Games that matter between two good teams have been good to the under. So you kind of want to look at what it means to the two teams, what quality teams they are. And also, Kiev, the other thing, I don't really like doing this in general, but laying the big number late in the regular season has actually done pretty well. So you're going to get some people that say, well, you never can lay, double digits in college basketball. It's just a stupid move. It's not actually true. There's some times of the years that it makes sense. Very early in the season, it can win at a high rate. Very late in the season, it can win at a high rate too. So keep an eye on that.
Yeah, absolutely. That is important stuff. It can at a very high rate. And looking for those fade spots for teams that give up have always paid the bills. There's a Texas. I'm not sure if they're not going to be too motivated now that they're probably away from the tournament. So that's one team you definitely don't want to bet on. I'm not saying you have to bet against them, but there's some warnings out there. Miami's been a poor team and have given up most of the season. I saw some life in them, maybe a little bit in early February, but that was about it. It was Miami's a team that's in transition, and some kids are already looking at the transfer portal, Kyle. So it's definitely a warning sign when you're looking at them. Also, there's no three times is the charm thing, right? Uh, just because you lost twice doesn't mean third time's the charm. It means that team's got your number and they might just be better than you. So don't think that, oh, third time's the charm. It really has to do with the fact that this team knows how to play you. And if that's the case, you better make some drastic changes. Usually more often than not, you lose the third time, don't you, Kyle?
Absolutely. And I hate to bring in a different perspective in this in some ways, but youth basketball, Kiev, my son's team had a good year, much improved from last year. But there's one team that they beat us 3 times. It was pretty close all 3 times, but they just got way more rebounds than we did. They were just taller. If you get triple the rebounds, triple the amount of shots, you're probably going to win. Even if you're not a great shooting team. Sometimes teams just match up really well against other teams. So this whole thing about it's really hard to beat a team 3 times. What if you're better than them? Or what if you just match up really well against them? So the next time somebody says it's really hard to beat a team 3 times, I would question that pretty heavily because, there might be something to that. Now, obviously, if it's the worst team that's lost or the worst team that's won both games, and for some reason, they won in overtime and double overtime in the 2 games, then I would think about it. But in general, that's said far too often.
Absolutely. It's said, and it's going to be talked about in the media and other places. Careful with teams that can improve their seed too, because it's going to be senior night this week and next week for a lot of these games. And you think just because it's senior night, it means something. Well, the transfers, it means less. If it's a bad team playing a good team, a good team might have a reason to play, right, Kyle?
Absolutely. There's many reasons involved, and senior night has been much talked about and argued about for years, Kiev. I usually stay away from those games just because we've seen it go both ways. There can be more pressure on teams. There can be teams that do get fired up for that spot. There can be other teams that just kind of lay an egg in that spot. It's definitely a situational spot. Handicapper, if you like situational spots, I think this is your time of the year to bet college hoops. But be careful because you're going to see some outliers this time of the year. It's going to happen. Some team you're like, they shouldn't be that bad. I think Kiev made a good point with Texas. I mean, Texas looked pretty decent for a while. I want no part of betting Texas. You either fade Texas or you pass those games. They've just given us too many reasons to want to fade them to try to flip around to the other side here right now.
100%. Texas. And you know what? You can find those teams that are out. Big Ten tournament, like I mentioned last week, only 15 of the 18 teams make it. There's 2 of them that have a very slight chance right now, but their final game are probably toast. So keep an eye on that. Thanks, Michael. Michael Sarah says keep the quality of work. Looks like he thinks we seem to keep things clear and focused at a time with so much noise. I try, Kyle. I try, Michael. It's just so hard, to stay focused all the time. But that's why, you kind of drop everything else and focus on what you're good at. And Kyle's great at college basketball, and I'm not looking at any NBA or NHL myself right now. I'm trying to do that. So thanks for the nice statement there, Michael. We really appreciate it. So Kyle, let's talk about the next subject then, and that is conference tournament. We have some awesome tournaments coming up, and there are there's 11 out there right now, man, and there's literally numbers out on 11. I think we can pass, Kyle, if we don't have a good feeling. I might pass on a few of them. But let's start with looking at some of the DK odds because they're nicely laid out here, and I'll even share my screen for anybody following along live here on YouTube. It looks like Lipscomb, and we're looking at the Atlantic Sun Conference Tournament. Kyle, this tournament actually started already, which is funny to say, man. It's already rolling here in March Madness. But Lipscomb is the top seed here at -170. Atlantic Sun going this week. Do you have any thoughts on this one?
I really don't. I think Lipscomb and North Alabama are pretty clear of everybody else. So I try to find an underdog here. Don't love anything here. I will say the North Alabama versus Austin Peay game that is tonight here on Monday night. Those games were really, really crazy. They had a fight after the game in the first game. The second game was really tightly officiated. kind of a game to keep an eye on if you have ESPN Plus here coming up tonight. But I don't have anything I really like as far as futures value.
So I did take a little shot at Queens at 50-1. It's 45-1 here on DraftKings. It actually shot down to 30-1 on FanDuel. The thing about Queens, Kyle, they beat the top two seeds this year. Now, they might have lost the game against one of them too, but why would you not, when you're getting 50-1 here, right? And I'm just pulling up Queens on Ken Palm right here. It's almost a little too good for a high variance Atlantic Sun conference because they do shoot a lot of threes, right? They play some fast basketball in this conference, and you wonder if Queens gets by Florida Gulf Coast here. They beat Lipscomb at Lipscomb this year. It was only by 2 points, but that was a nice little upset on January 9th. They did drop the one at home later in the year. But, the fact that they did beat them once has pedigree, and they did beat North Alabama once as well. So I found the fact that a team that beat the two favorites at 50-1 might as well give it a shot. This is going to be played, I believe, at the home teams. Whoever the home teams in the higher seed are is going to get the home game, Kyle.
Yeah, I don't hate that. Like I said, this also is not a league that I bet that much during the regular season. And when it's teams that I don't really follow quite as closely as some of the others, I usually try to pass on that.
All right, no, fair enough. Let's move to the next one on DK order, the Sun Belt. They're not exactly doing an alphabetical order. Maybe it's by who plays the first game. Sun Belt here is an interesting one, Kyle, isn't it? It's you got to see this bracket. It is very crazy looking. It's elongated, Kyle. Can you explain why?
Yeah, I was looking at this bracket myself right now, Kiev. This thing is like a thing of beauty. I mean, can you imagine? And you can argue whether it's fun or not that they give everybody a pass right to the semifinals, the first and second seed. But it's wild. I mean, if you're an 11 seed like Louisiana, the Raging Cajun, you just have no shot with a setup like this. There's no way it's happening. And I don't like to say no way, but there's no way here in this kind of spot.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. They have to win like 7 games, man.
Listen, I'll eat my words if they win this thing. I'm happy to eat my crow, no doubt about that. But I think you try to look. It's hard to take anybody outside the top 4, Kiev, unless you do like a money line rollover, and that's something we'll talk about a few times here. If you want to take a team that's lower ranked, an 8th seed or something like that, you could just go ahead and bet them for as long as you want to keep betting it, and then you could just stop. I will say, in this one, Arkansas State is the favorite, like everywhere, Kiev. I think it makes sense. I think they are a solid team. The only thing about Arkansas State that kind of worries me is they've not done well against the best teams in this league. They've kind of beaten up on the bad teams in this league. And analytically, they've looked like the best team, except for when they play against the other top teams. That worries me to take a team that's plus 200 when they've been losing to those teams pretty consistently. So
Agreed.
I'm going to pass on them because of that. James Madison's well coached. I think Spradlin's a really good coach. He's done a good job everywhere he's been. I could see somebody betting on James Madison. I wouldn't blame them. Kiev, I haven't bet on anything here. App State is good defensively, and I kind of would like to back a team like that, but they've kind of trended in a bad way here at the end of the season. This would probably be a money line rollover candidate if you want to bet App State, because even against Texas State, it'd be a tight spread. Then you got Troy and James Madison. I do feel like there's several teams that could win this, but the bracket being set up the way it is makes it really hard for somebody outside the top 4 to win this. So I don't blame the conference for doing something like this because they want to get their best team in there. It's just in this one, like, who is the best team? Do we know who the best team is?
We don't. 7 games. That's if you play in the NCAA tournament and you're not in the play-on game, it's harder to win this for the bottom seeds.
Absolutely.
I mean, there's 6 games to win the NCAA tournament and only 7 with the play-in game. So it's literally just as long as the 7-game stretch. It's amazing to see. But you know what? That's what they do. They are rewarding your conference, which I kind of like, but I think you could have done it in a little bit better of a way. At the bottom, maybe, brush that up a little bit and still give the buys to the top teams. Do it like the West Coast Conference a little bit. It just seems a little bit too long, but I'll have to look at the West Coast Conference bracket myself Yeah, my problem is the top two teams are in the 3 and 4 seeds, so they get the extra
Yeah.
game, right? So just like you said, South Alabama and James Madison are fine. James Madison won it last year, and I remember that so well since they took my Badgers out of the NCAA tournament that fun first game. But to win 2 in a row, I don't know. If I was going to pick a team, it would be something like App State or something, Troy, or Troy. So App State or Troy would be the only play for me. But I also don't have a play in this conference. And yes, Rodney, we'll be doing some more shows definitely during conference tournaments and possibly some night ones too that Kyle and I are loving to do. The spaces and Kyle, we might put one out this week, Kyle.
Yeah, probably so. I think we'll try to do multiple shows. I want to try to cover as many of these as we possibly can. You and I both love this time of the year. We'll try to get some valuable content out there. Kiev, I do want to say too, Pensacola Bay Center, where these games are going to be played, 25 and 19 to the over, and a lot of them have gone way over the total. So this is a neutral site where games have actually gone pretty far over the total. I see what's happened here is a lot of the games have gotten bet down, kind of like the other conference tournaments, and they've actually flown over that total. So that's something to watch here is we don't have like a Madison Square Garden here or something that's good for under bettors. This may be generous Rams. I'm not really sure what the deal is for why they're going over the total, but they've been going over by a good amount here.
Yeah, 100%. That is an interesting point to make too, and we'll be looking at those totals for these conferences. Let's move on to the next one, which on DK it is the Patriot League. Teams like Bucknell, American, Colgate, Navy. Kyle, what do you have for us on the Patriot League?
So I bet Colgate plus 400 here in this one. Colgate has such a history of winning this conference tournament. I know they're not as good as they have been some of the other years, and there's a reason they're not the favorite here this time. But I don't think that Bucknell or American are that much better than them. If you look at how they played Bucknell in the regular season, they beat them one of the 2 times. They lost a close game on the road that was tied with like 5 or 6 minutes left in the game. So I think Colgate is a pretty decent look here. Woodward's a good player, kind of the leader for that team. And, I like their first matchup there against Army. American beat them twice in the regular season. I don't think American is really that much better than them. So then they would play American in the second game and then maybe a Bucknell in the final. But I don't think Bucknell is assured to be in the final either. Boston U or somebody like that could come out of the top and it wouldn't shock me. I think 400 is a pretty good price here on Colgate. Moneyline rollover would also do pretty well. Haven't really done the math on this one, but plus 400 here on Colgate is the bet that I made.
All right, it's not a bad bet at all because Colgate has the pedigree, even though they had a tough season at 13 and 18. Lots of rebuilding that Matt Langle had to do. But this guy's been to the NCAA tournament many times, and he's made some noise in the NCAA tournament. I think it was in 2000 and maybe 2019 was it? Well, they played Tennessee tough in 2019. I'm trying to remember, but they always seem to be making the tournament just based on this coach, and so it's one hell of a shot to do. I believe that the Patriot League games are all home games too, Kyle. Am I correct?
Yes. Jimmy was able to grab plus 500 on that. Really good price. I like that a lot. Yeah, these are home games. So no real trends to speak of in this one. We'll try to give out the trends as much as I can here on the neutral site games.
All right. So I agree with taking the shot. I just don't like to lay or even just take plus 110 on Bucknell there. That is, they got the numbers, but that is just not even close to value there. You got to watch out for these bad value bets. They're out there, and they're not. These books aren't giving anything away to you. They might overlook some teams there, but they're not giving you anything on the top seeds. Let's move to the Horizon. The Horizon, we got Robert Morris at plus 240, Milwaukee plus 280, Cleveland State plus 310. Purdue Fort Wayne at plus 650, Youngstown State at plus 750, and then it gets really deep from there. Kyle, I actually did make a play on the Horizon, and I did take Robert Morris. I got him as 2 plus 270 when they could still be there on FanDuel because Milwaukee was the favorite on FanDuel, and it looks like Robert Morris is the favorite right now on DraftKings. The thing that I think about the Horizon League is that Cleveland State has been bad down the stretch, Kyle. They've been faltering and they've been losing some games, right? So I did not want to be on them. And Milwaukee, not the greatest away from home team. I know they did very well during the regular season, and they might have even beaten Robert Morris. I have to double check that. But Milwaukee to me should be the second place. I think Robert Morris plus 200 or better is a play for me, even though I got plus 270. I think it's a pretty good one. Um, I think away from home they've done pretty well, Kyle.
I'm going to go a different direction here, and I don't dislike that bet, but I'm going to go a different direction here and take a little bit more of a long shot. Fort Wayne, I took plus 675 on Caesars. The problem with Fort Wayne is they have a tough game right from the jump, and that's definitely the knock on them. But they are the top-rated team according to shot quality in the Ryzen League. They've kind of had some poor luck. If you look at the analytical sites, they've definitely not been very fortunate. They have many guys who are capable of scoring. If they can reach the semifinals, Kiev, they'll kind of have a semi-home court advantage there in Indiana. I bet plus 675 on Fort Wayne. I think that's a decent look. Not a huge bet at all. I bet Colgate bigger than that, so just for perspective. But it's also this Corteva Center. All three games went over last year, but all three were very close. So somebody's going to say they're 3-0 to the over. This is a great overplay. So it looks like all of them went over by like 3-4 points or less. So I don't know that we have anything that we can go off of too much there. I do have a trend here, and this is a courtesy of Steve Makinen from VSiN. He put out a good trend here. Home favorites priced at -5 or less are 14-0 against the spread in the last 14 in this tournament. So these short home favorites have been covering the spread at a ridiculous rate, obviously 100% in the last 14. Now, obviously, I want to caution because somebody's going to hear that, Kiev, and be like, well, this is like free money. I could just bet that it's not going to keep winning at 100%. But it's kind of something interesting to keep an eye on because maybe that home court advantage means a little bit more than people think in that tournament game here.
Absolutely. Purdue Fort Wayne beat Milwaukee, so you got something on that. A little bit tough down the stretch here, but maybe, that was just kind of like the end of season woe. If you got a good number on them, why not? Especially when they've shown they could beat Milwaukee, which they have twice. So that's pretty interesting right there. So look for the dogs more or less in this one is what we're preaching. Let's move to the next one, and that is the Northeast Conference. Sorry, I had to really reread that. You got Central Connecticut State at -250, which is a massive favorite here. It kind of goes down from there. LIU is plus 370, St. Francis, PA plus 1300. This is probably the least conference, Kyle, that I've ever bet. And probably this year, I'm trying to remember if I had a bet in this whole thing. But I do know is that the first games are at home. Then they reseed and continue to play at home. So they do reseed the tournament, which I find is interesting. And that really helps Central Connecticut, Kyle. And I think they're too good, but it's just too bad of a price.
Yeah, there are big differences here in prices. And I think that's something that you and I always preach is shop around. This time of the year is very important. I've seen -280. I've also seen -210. BetMGM is -210 right now in Central Connecticut. So if you like them, -210, far better than what you're going to get somewhere else. I don't know that there's a big enough difference between them and everybody else. And given that they have to play in the same round, I mean, they all start in the quarterfinals. If they had a bye to the semis, maybe you could take -210 on Central Connecticut. But I can't do it laying that kind of price, knowing that some of these teams like to slow the game down. You look at a Wagner and LIU, teams like that, very good under teams. That also can create some strange results. These 51-49 type games, the dog can win in a game like that. Another good trend here is in title games for the NEC, 14-3 against the spread in the last 17 title games for underdogs. So the dogs have been barking big time in the title games here in the NEC. I think there's been a decent amount of low scoring games here. I think that's very possible. Again, I did make one bet here in this one that was just kind of a ridiculous long shot. It's so much different of a price now. I really don't want to give it out because somebody's going to be like, wow, it's like past post here. But, it's there are some significant price differences. And if you put in a decent sized bet in some of these, then they will move significantly. So What I would probably do here is look for a money line rollover candidate. Try to look for a long shot. Do you think has a chance? Do you think Wagner has a chance to win a couple games with their low scoring defense? Maybe take a money line rollover with them. Do you think there can be a shocker in the top of the bracket? Maybe take a money line rollover on somebody up in the top. But I don't have any strong thoughts here.
Yeah, Central Connecticut has the nation's longest win streak now at 12 games. After Akron lost, I believe that they were just slotted in there. And do you know who has second, Kyle? Any shots?
In the country?
Yeah, second longest win streak.
I've seen this looking through the profiles, but I don't remember who it is. I don't know.
It's High Point, and we'll talk about them coming up here. I thought UIC. I thought it was UC San Diego.
San Diego.
And then last week I looked at High Point and was like, oh wow, they've been really trading. We'll talk about them. But let's move on to the Ohio Valley Conference here with Southeast Missouri State at plus 150. You got SIU Edwardsville, the second favorite, at plus 270. Tennessee State plus 400. Little Rock plus 500, and it gets obviously bigger and bigger from there. Why don't you start with Ohio Valley, Kyle?
First, this is at Ford Center, and I was looking at the totals here. Neutral venue in Evansville, I believe. 12 and 11 to the under, but an average of 4 points under the total. So it's just a little bit to the under on the number 12 and 11, but the average game has gone under by a decent amount. That would tell me I think this is a decent under venue because some of these games have gone way under the total. So probably a decent one. SEMO State deserves to be favorite, but I do think this one's kind of wide open. Kiev, what happened to Morehead State? Remember when Morehead State was always the best team here? And early in the season, Morehead was at the top of this conference, and now they just absolutely crashed and burned. I don't think that it would be absolutely stunning for Morehead State to win a couple games here. I don't hate a Morehead State money line rollover, to be honest with you, just as a pizza money type bet. I probably will do that just for fun myself. But the other long shot I like in this one, Kiev, at least somewhat, is UT Martin. UT Martin analytically has been really unlucky according to shot quality. And UT Martin's games are so wild because they take a bunch of threes. So, I mean, it could go down in flames or they could do really well. UT Martin, I think, has a reasonable shot to win the first couple games. They're plus 3,500 at BetMGM right now. So I think plus 3,500 is a pretty decent price. You want to put a small bet here. That's probably the one I would take. And like I said, maybe some kind of money line rollover. But I don't want to bet a favorite here because I don't think anybody's way better than anybody else in this conference. I think these games will be pretty close.
What's nice about UT Martin is they're not on the same side as Morehead State. So you could, do a little bit of both if you want. And, there you have it. And then decide when you want to get out. Let's just want the 60-1 here on Morehead State. That's interesting. Yeah, UT Martin is actually 30-1. So it looks like Morehead State's got the deeper odds in this one. I wrote that it's probably going to be Southeast Missouri State, Kyle, to win it all. They beat Edwardsville twice this year. So, I'm not going to bet the favorite because they beat them twice either. It's not like, not like I love them because they do that. It's just a situation where the price does not even warrant a bet for me, but I would agree to look what Kyle's doing. And not all these favorites are going to win. This could be the one that, Morehead State gets their Morehead of their, and starts winning. They used to be a great unders team for me and Kyle to bet over the years, but I think I started losing on their unders in December. And I was like, you know what? This team is not that good anymore. So didn't they lose Broom to transfer to Auburn?
Yeah. Tough loss there a couple years ago. That's for sure.
Do you think that might be the biggest loss out of any transfer that's happened in the last ever?
That's brutal. I mean, if you just put Broom back on this team, they'd immediately be the favorite again, easily.
If they put Broom on this team, they're minus money to win it no matter what. Right. It's like hey, donors, please, we need to keep this guy. Didn't quite happen.
Yeah.
Oh man, that's gotta be. You know what? When he makes the NBA, I'm sure that they're still gonna be putting pictures up here because I sure as hell right. I absolutely would do that. All right, well, let's move to the next one, and that is the Big South Conference Tournament. So I already mentioned it, High Point. High Point is minus 250 in this conference. High Point is a dangerous team, Kyle. So All I really want to say about the Big South is I think High Point's going to win it. Radford, UNC, Asheville. If I was going to look at anything, it'd probably be Asheville. I just think High Point's got too good of an offense, and they've just been too hot, and the defense has not played that well in the Big South. And it's in Charlotte, North Carolina. It is away from home, so I guess that would be the thought that maybe they could lose because they're not playing home games here. Kyle, what do you have for this one?
I don't bet this conference as much as most. I did kind of look to try to isolate somebody out of the bottom of the bracket because I want to stay away from High Point. High Point's definitely the best team, not even close. But Kiev, my problem is I was trying to look at Winthrop and Longwood, like who I wanted, but they play each other in the first game. I don't like it when the two teams that I'm kind of considering to bet as a long shot are playing each other in the first game. And if I believe Longwood got crushed by Winthrop in both games in the regular season. So they're the ones with the longer odds, the Lancers. But I mean, Winthrop took it to them both games in the regular season. I think High Point's going to win this conference tournament. I wouldn't take minus 250 though.
Yeah, I'm not taking minus 250. Moneyline roller might even be better on this. And, you have to have conviction that they're going to play some defense too, because one push shooting, I can screw it up for them as well. High Point is kind of like my sleeper if they make the tournament. I think that they could just come up with, house money type situation, not expecting to win. And, the team they're playing might be the one with the nerves. They'll probably be a 12 seed or so, Kyle, and they're going to play a 4 seed, or a 5 seed or something like that, or 13-4. Could be one of those upsets that we might have circled in our bracket this year. So we'll find out when that happens. But I'll be rooting for High Point because I think they can make some noise as long as they're not playing my team in the NCAA tournament. Let's move on to the Summit League tournament. And I do have a play in this one too. This one's interesting because the Tommies can't make the NCAA tournament. And if they lose this one, if they win this tournament, it goes to the 1 seed, Kyle. It goes to Omaha, which I find interesting. But for me, I bet Omaha at plus 450. And I think that Omaha, being the 1 seed, and they've kind of proven it by what they did in the regular season. It's strange. And I know this is in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. So it's not like it's a little bit better for South Dakota, North Dakota, those teams. And those teams in KenPom are ranked the highest, but I just think that Omaha should have been better, more towards the plus 200s with North Dakota State and St. Thomas. So what are your thoughts on this one?
Okay, so I bet Omaha small last night. BetMGM was plus 700 at the time, so I bet that one small.
Nice.
I think there might be plus 500 somewhere now. So the offshores don't have great odds here. Definitely shop around on some of the books to see what kind of numbers you can get. I think this was really kind of a puzzle, Kiev, because first of all, St. Thomas should be allowed to go to the tournament if they win. I mean, it's kind of a ridiculous rule. I mean, I don't want to get on a soapbox. We'll take too long, Kiev, but that's a ridiculous rule. So, and then it defaults to the top seed. I mean, how do you decide that, okay, they're not going to make it, so this top seed's going to make it? What if they lose in the first game and then they still just get to the NCAA tournament? I mean, it's kind of back your way to the NCAA tournament. I really hope that doesn't happen. That would suck. South Dakota State's done really well in this conference tournament in the past. It's kind of a home game for them, obviously. I just don't think South Dakota State's really that deep this year. They don't have a very good bench. North Dakota State's really dangerous, so. But I think their first game against South Dakota is a tricky one for them. St. Thomas, what's their motivation level? I think that's really hard to gauge because I'm sure they want to win the tournament, but it's still going to be a bummer if they can't make the big dance. Remember Merrimack did that a couple of years ago where they win it, but then they can't go.
Yes,
that sucked. That was tough. I think Omaha, is being a bit undervalued. Especially given the situation for St. Thomas. And if South Dakota were somewhere else, I might have wanted to take South Dakota because they play that really fast, high-scoring games. And they're going to be a bit of a home court advantage too. And I do want to say the under is 50 and 40 at this arena. So it is an under venue. This is a league, Kiev, that they play next to no defense. You know this. There's really high-scoring games in the Summit League. But what that creates is some very high totals totals of 155.5 or higher, or 14-5 to the under in this conference tournament. And a lot of them have gone way under. So if you get a really high number here, I'm probably going to look for unders because I think it's going to be harder with this shooting backdrop in a bigger place to shoot than what it is throughout the regular season. Also, these games are more important, so they don't play quite as fast usually.
Yeah, 100%. They are more important, and it could go to the under because of the need to win. These teams are fighting for postseason berth just like everybody else. So I agree with you there. So one thing I do slightly disagree with you on, Kyle, we rarely disagree, so I always want to point it out, is I think it should go to Omaha for that because it makes if the Tommies win, do you give it to the team they beat? It may be because they made it farther, but if you got to reward the regular season, in my opinion,
Fair, yeah.
somehow. There's also been some talks that have said, why even play a conference tournament if it's going to screw over your regular season winner if he's that good? And it definitely puts a lot more stress on them for like 3-4 games in a row as well. So I find that interesting. But that's about it, though. Otherwise, yeah, man. I think the Tommy should make it, and that's a silly rule. And hopefully someday it will change. Let's move on to the next conference, the Missouri Valley. Arch Madness, my man. And that's coming up with Drake being the favorite here at -110. Hate the Drake. Well, I hate laying points, Kyle. Then you have Bradley at +340, Northern Iowa +475, Belmont, who used to be a noisemaker in this conference, +1200, Illinois State +1500. It gets more and more from there, Kyle. What about Arch Madness for you?
Well, Kiev, I have to start with the over-under numbers here. You probably knew this was coming, but
yeah.
The under's 97 and 67 here. This has not been as strong of an angle lately because everybody knows it. So what happens is this is versus the closing number. Kiev knows this. A lot of the listeners probably know this. The totals for Missouri Valley Conference games are going to get bet down in the marketplace. So whatever they put out there, it's going to get bet down. The closing line is going to be worse to the under than the opening line is. So keep that in mind. But this is a big gym, a hockey arena where it's definitely tough to shoot. Drake is the best team here, but I don't think they're best by a margin. Kiev, they're -110, -120 some places. I think that's overpriced. I mean,
yeah.
If you look at what they've done lately, they needed overtime to beat Missouri State twice. And Missouri State's one of the weaker teams in this league. Now, Drake is well coached and certainly deserving to be a favorite, but I think that's too much. Bradley's really well coached as well. They have a history of doing a good job in this tournament. And the problem with Bradley is you look at the advanced sites, the Ken Palm shot quality, things like that. They think they've been really lucky this year. So I can't decide, if you go with the past history of Bradley being a really tough out in a tournament like this. It's also not, a huge price on Bradley. So you're not getting some huge underdog price. Northern Iowa, could they make a run? It wouldn't surprise me. I haven't placed a bet here in this one, Kiev. I really don't know what I want to bet here. I obviously want to look for unders depending on what kind of number they put out. But Bobby makes a good point. They're relying on 3-point field goals. And I think that's what shot quality doesn't like about Bradley is they think they've shot better than they should have based on the quality of shots they've gotten. So is it really great to back a team like that when you go into a hockey arena? I'm a little worried to do that, but I don't really know who to take here. So I don't know. Kiev, you have anybody you like in this one?
Here's my problem with. I mean, that's a valid concern, but there's concerns with Drake too, and I'll share my screen here. The concern that I have with Drake the most is their turnovers. They rank 292nd in turning the ball over. That's weird for the slowest team in sports, right? The slowest team in the NCAA is what I'm trying to say, not sports, but college basketball is turning the ball over, ranking 292nd in turnover rate. Now, thank God they get turnovers from their great defense that they play on the other end. But if a team that, wins by defense, their offense is good this year, don't get me wrong. That worries me a little bit. And plus, they don't really effective field goal wise 239th in the opponents. There's some red flags there with Drake too. It is not perfect. I would definitely look for some plus money somewhere on this. I could see both of these teams getting bounced just from what you said. I do not want to rely on a 3-point shooting team. Bradley, number 1 in 3-point shooting, 95th in attempts. But man, going to a different arena like that is worrisome. Hell, they lost to Illinois State by 9 points, 11 points here just a couple weeks ago, because it was an away court, and it's tough. And nobody's making the NCAA tournament out of this. I don't think they would give it to Drake at large either, Kyle, which is kind of sad.
No, I think the past history of the tournament committee makes it highly unlikely. So you got to win this conference tournament if you want to get in.
Absolutely. Arch Madness, though, we can always bet these games and bet unders. So we'll listen to Kyle on that trend. And, of course, everything's number dependent, but I'm going to be looking for that. I know it's the cat's out of the bag, but, we'll hunt for some numbers. West Coast Conference Tournament. So this is weird. Gonzaga's favored at -125. St. Mary's at +130. Kyle, I don't even think I should mention any other team, and I'm disrespecting them, I guess, but I don't care. It's between the Zags and the Gales. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, we can save time and just say it is between the Zags and the Gales. It's going to be shocking if somebody else wins this. It's interesting because St. Mary's did beat Gonzaga twice. Kiev, I liked St. Mary's a lot in that second game at Gonzaga. They were +6.5. I don't know how they were +6.5. Kind of ridiculous line. Then they won at Gonzaga. So they have to beat a good team 3 times. We talked about this. The analytical sites, most of them have Gonzaga ranked ahead of St. Mary's. So, this is one of those tricky spots where Gonzaga definitely would be super up for this game. I love Randy Bennett. I think he's still underrated as a head coach. I've seen as high as +150 on St. Mary's, and +150 is getting to where I would consider it at +120, +130. I think it's a pass. But, what's an easier or tougher game, Kiev? Santa Clara or San Francisco there in the semifinals?
I think Santa Clara is a little tougher. I watched San Francisco play at home against Gonzaga, and holy cow, they looked like crap. They didn't look good. I took +9 or whatever it was. I thought it was a great spot for them and everything, and the Zags whipped them, and the Zags aren't that good. I'm surprised the Zags are favored, and they're favored just because of the history and the fact that they need it so bad, because the Zags might be out of the tournament. They might be out of the NCAA tournament. I can't believe I'm saying this, Kyle, but this is the worst Zags team I've seen in over 20 years. And now it's St. Mary's. St. Mary's doesn't need the win, but man, would they love to take out the Zags. They beat the Zags twice. It's like, why would I not take plus money on St. Mary's? I took them at +135. It's just, this is one of those things I'm saying. It's not like because you lost twice, you're going to get them the third time. It is not like that. And I watched these games in depth, and St. Mary's is better. They're just better. They're more buttoned up. They make less mistakes. Gonzaga can be very, haphazard with that ball. I know the efficiency sites always love the Zags because they blow away teams, but man, guys like Hickman, he's been inconsistent. Khalif Battle all over the place, man. And Ben Gregg too, so these are guys that are just not your Chet Holmgrens, right? They're not the stars that have gotten the Zags there in the first place. And the Zags, as desperate as they are, that doesn't make them a good team. And they faltered a lot of games. I can't believe they lost 4 games this year, Kyle, in this bad conference. Oregon State was one of them. Santa Clara was one of them. I like St. Mary's at the plus money.
Yeah, certainly my lean as well. You could, like you said, you could argue Gonzaga needs it more, but I think St. Mary's is better than Gonzaga. And St. Mary's is great on the glass. Mitchell Saxton's an absolute beast on the offensive glass. Tons of second chances. They take advantage of those. And Marshallonis is a great player, probably the player of the year in the league. It's nice to have such a good point guard, take care of the ball really well, and be able to rebound so well. You have that kind of combination. I think you're really dangerous. And in the NCAA tournament, I kind of think too, somebody's going to say, well, look at Gonzaga. They're, what are they, 8th in Ken Palm. 8th is way too high, definitely too high for Gonzaga. St. Mary's, not rated near as highly, 20th. despite being 27-4. But what Kiev said is true. Gonzaga running up the score against the weaker teams has really pushed them up in the rankings here. I don't really care that St. Mary's doesn't beat those teams by as much. I think St. Mary's is better, and I think they're also a more dangerous draw in March Madness.
Absolutely. I'd much rather play Gonzaga over St. Mary's. So the CAA just popped up. Charleston, UNC Wilmington. Kyle, I didn't prepare this one. Have you looked at it, or should we pass?
I've looked at it just slightly. So Towson's what, third favorite, I think? That's what I'd seen here.
Yeah, plus 450.
And Wilmington the favorite?
Yeah, UNC Wilmington's plus 200, Charleston's plus 380, which is interesting. I thought they would make Charleston the top seed, but as you mentioned before on Spaces, Charleston's a very lucky team this year. I mean, I would lean anybody but Charleston, I guess, but I haven't looked deep into it.
I mean, I think I kind of lean Towson. It might be a disrespected number one seed here. Towson's really good rebounding. I know Towson started the year poorly, but they've definitely come on nicely. There's a decent amount of teams that could win this conference tournament, though. So I think this one's fairly wide open. I don't think I'd want to take Wilmington as a decent sized favorite. One of the underdogs that I would be interested in taking would probably be Drexel, but then they go against Towson in the second game. So, and also a team like Elon Kiev, they beat the very best teams in this conference multiple times, but then lost to the worst teams in the conference. Just a wildly, those inconsistent teams are really tough. I can't bet on those teams because, they can pull a shocker and then lose to anybody the next game. I don't have the data on the neutral site here, but I'll look that up and post it on Twitter X at some point. But I know Campbell has been really good defensively. The Fighting Camels, I have to give a shout out to them. It's just a fantastic nickname. I still love seeing when they are playing a home game and you see the camel in the middle of the court. But I think I would take Towson. I haven't bet it, so I'm going to look at this one a little bit more. But that's just my initial inclination is, I don't think William and Mary's great as a 4 seed up on the top of that bracket. So, Towson's ability to get offensive rebounds and play solid defense, I think that's probably what I'd lean.
Absolutely. It's like they lost that bad one to Elon. Oh, well, it's not like Elon's a terrible team here. They're one of the better ones. And they lost the road game to Elon, and then they lost the other road game to Charleston. So it's, there's a lot of green on Towson here, Kyle. And yeah, Towson at plus one, or was the money on that? Plus what?
Plus 3 something.
Plus 450 here on DraftKings. I'm with you. I'm going to take a play on Towson. I absolutely am, man. It's a good way to fade Charleston, and Wilmington's my only big worry here, and maybe Elon, but I think that I think that Towson has proven it. Why would they be disrespected like this? And players these days, they see these numbers. They're not completely blind to it. Just because they don't bet, they know who's favored and who's not. That they could kind of take that to heart a little bit. So I'll be playing Towson after the show. Well, last one is the Southern Conference, and Chattanooga is the favorite at plus 270. Stanford plus 330, or Samford, I should say. UNC Greensboro plus 380, Wofford plus 500. Then it goes down from there. Then you have some really bad teams like the Citadel in Western Carolina that you can probably just forget about. But Kyle, this is interesting here in the SoCon. You've done well in the SoCon before, and it's nice to see Chattanooga back up top.
Yeah, it is. Chattanooga, really good offense, coach that's good at offensive mind, innovative. Samford and Furman is a good first round matchup, Kiev. I don't know who's going to win that game. Furman's been really good in the past. They've not quite been at the same level this year. I know they beat Samford at least once in the regular season. I'd rather try to find somebody from the bottom of the conference. And I kind of like East Tennessee State. The problem is East Tennessee State doesn't get like a free win to start. They have Wofford in the first game, where Chattanooga has Mercer and Western Carolina. UNC Greensboro has VMI or Citadel, probably VMI. I don't know. I mean, that last game too, UNC Greensboro against who was it? UNC Greensboro played in the last game. Was it Samford? And it was like 108 to 100 or something, just super high. Greensboro's usually been a really high or low scoring team that plays good defense. And 108 to 100.
It was Samford 108 to 100. And I just looked it up.
Crazy,
So yeah,
crazy
absolutely.
game.
It is crazy because UNC Greensboro ranks 336th in tempo. So wow.
Jeez. Yeah, I don't know, Kiev. That might have been one of those weird games where they were kind of they already knew where they were going to be in the standings, so it didn't really matter as much. Maybe if they were going to play each other and they put a really high total, I think about taking the under. Unfortunately, now they don't play each other; they wouldn't until the final. I think Greensboro unders is still the way I would look toward them. This one's played at Harris Cherokee Center, which looks like it's slightly to the under, but nothing drastic. Just slightly to the under here in the past. I don't know. East Tennessee State is my lean as far as the future, but like I said, I don't love their setup, so I don't know that I'll bet anything on the future.
Yeah, Chattanooga's is hot. And it's in Asheville, North Carolina, so it is neutral. So there is more weakness there on your top seeds there that they don't get home. I don't have nothing on this one. It's just I don't have a good feel enough for this conference here or this year anyway. And I'm going to be watching a little bit though, and maybe I can find some live situations. But yeah, nothing there for me. I think that I like how finally Chattanooga's back there since they lost Lamont Paris. Though I think it's cool to see him, back towards the top seed. So let's hope they make some noise. All right, well, let's talk about the games on Tuesday. There's a couple big ones coming up here, and God, it's crunch time, right? There's so many massive situations. These conference tournaments are starting that we just went over, obviously, and then you have Auburn at A&M. God, can you fade Auburn at this point? I mean, A&M just tried their asses off at Florida and still lost by double digits. You have Iowa State against BYU. You have Arizona hosting Arizona State. You have Purdue hosting Rutgers, Kentucky hosting LSU. What's interesting for me is I'm probably looking at Kentucky, and I think it's a good bounce back spot after they got schooled against Auburn. I kind of hope that their players play, though. I believe Butler is going to play for Kentucky, and the problem is that Jackson Robinson did not play last game. I thought he was going to play against Auburn, and he never did. He had to sit out that game because of resting his injury. The problem that they're going to get with Kentucky is that this year you're never going to get those guys completely healthy. They're always going to be at 70% probably, Kyle, even in the NCAA tournament. So that's a big worry. And that sucks for Kentucky because they had so much hope early in the season, beating Duke, right? Beating Duke, beating Gonzaga, beating Louisville, beating Florida. They had so much hope going for them. But I could still see myself on Kentucky if I can get those guys in. And I might be in Iowa State again, too, because Iowa State finally got healthy, making a statement, want to move back to that 2-seed, 1-seed conversation. They had a big win against Arizona, but it's not a letdown spot because they need to move seeds up. And I think they're going to put one on BYU, and they'll probably be a 6.5, 7-point favorite. So I'll take Iowa State tomorrow.
Yeah, I mean, it looks like they're starting to put up a few numbers, and I see -7 on Iowa State. So I think that's fair. I think Iowa State -7 would be my lean as well. The one that I was going to look at here for Tuesday was Arkansas and Vanderbilt. Arkansas is not even close to the same team without Fland and Thiero. I'm not sure how you pronounce his name exactly, but those guys are pretty key. Arkansas in its current state is not even close to Missouri's level. And I know Missouri maybe should have beaten Vanderbilt, but Missouri, I think, is the top 12 team. Arkansas is definitely not that. Arkansas is a bubble team that wouldn't be a bubble team without these key guys. They're also 292nd away from home rating at Haslametrics. Vandy's always been good at home. I love that they're so good on the offensive boards. They're great with second chance conversions, the edge on rebounding and turnovers. I think at a reasonable number, I said maybe 5 or less is pretty good. I see 5.5 as kind of the opening number. I certainly lean it at 5.5 as well. We'll see what the market does with this one, but I would rather bet Vandy here at home in this one.
100%, man. I would definitely bet Vandy here. I'm probably going to bet Vandy, and if they force their Thiero back in and Fland, I think Fland's done, by the way. I don't think he can come back, right? Isn't he out for the season? I have to double check that. I thought he was. Yeah. But if Thiero's forced back in, that doesn't mean he's any healthy anyway. And Coach Cal teams, no thanks, man. He needs his full strength here, and they screwed up on the scholarship side as well. Vanderbilt, perfect spot for them coming off a loss. I know it's good for Arkansas too because they got blown out South Carolina. I was on South Carolina, only had to lay a point or play at pick 'em. It was just such a comfortable win if you're on South Carolina this last game. Yeah, Vanderbilt actually got the overtime win against Missouri, so that's kind of a interesting spot. For some reason, I thought they lost that, but they got the big overtime win against Missouri. But still, Arkansas is going to be in shambles. I would much rather be on Vanderbilt here. Rick Smith likes Fresno under on Tuesday with the short rotation due to suspension. So that's a great look there, man. We'll take a look at that. For suspensions will definitely limit some of the points scoring sometimes, but I unfortunately also limits defense at times, Kyle. And, you got to be careful that they're not really big defensive guys, I guess. But I'll take a look at that one. Thanks, Rick. Looks like Rodney wants to know our thoughts on North Texas and Wichita State today. Anything? I have to relook at it. I capped it all last night and this morning here. Any quick thoughts on it while I pull it up?
I mean, I always like North Texas unders in general because they play such a slow pace and such good defense. But 128 is awfully low. I wanted 130 or higher. As far as the side, what is it? -7.5, -7 or 7.5 for North Texas. 7 looks like the primary line. I don't know. I mean, Wichita State's been inconsistent. They had that really nice home win over Memphis. Then they won on the road at Florida Atlantic. They also have losses at home against East Carolina, a blowout loss at home to South Florida. It does seem like they're kind of playing better here of late. I think this will be a lower scoring game. So I guess I kind of want to take the points, but I don't know. 7 doesn't feel like enough to me. I don't have anything very strong here.
Yeah, it's interesting is that Wichita State, North Texas, slow matchup, obviously, but I find that Haslametrics has this 11-point win for North Texas. I mean, that's a little high, I would think, but you know what? It just shows that the air is on the side of North Texas. The market kind of likes Wichita State a little bit because of how Wichita State's playing as of late, right? So, I wish I knew more about. I watched a few Wichita State games, and I always watched it when they played Memphis, and they won against Memphis, and that was a big win for them. UAB faltered against Memphis yesterday, and they just lost to UAB. It's just kind of trading punches back and forth in these teams. I mean, North Texas has 3 games left. It's not like they have the 1 seed in the bag right now, Kyle. It's probably a stay away, but 70-60 is what Ken Palm has, and the total's 127.5. And then I find it just very different that 58-69 is what a little bit lower there for this one. So it looks like 127.5 is right on Haslametrics. So I'm staying away from it, but thanks for the question, Rodney. I wish I had more for you on that one. That's an interesting one. But Kyle, we want to ask you one last question, and I would like to know. And you've done really well in this in the past. Give me a sleeper, my man. Give me a sleeper to make some noise in the NCAA tournament.
I do feel the pressure because I feel like I have done pretty well on these, and that's probably at least somewhat lucky. But we've had some really good runs on some of these sleeper teams in the past. So Kiev, I'm going to take VCU. VCU, I know they're very good in the A10, but they would definitely still be considered a sleeper because of how weak the conference is. I don't really know. I mean, they're 24-5. They're rated 28th on KenPom. Are we assuming that VCU needs to win the conference to make it in? I don't really pay that much attention to the bubble talk, at least until we get into the conference tournaments. But VCU has been on an amazing run here of late. They've won 8 games in a row. They're a really tall team, 69th in average height, 40th most experienced team. I know it's been relatively weak competition, guys, but they're just laying waste to everybody here of late. 8 straight wins, 6 of those by 16 points or more. Shulga is a really good sharpshooter, 42.6% from three-point range. They're 4th in effective field goal percentage defense. I think they're a tricky matchup if they get into the big dance to win a game or two, and they would almost surely be dogged at the beginning based on the conference they play in. But I think that, they have that neutral site win over Colorado State. They played well in a loss at New Mexico. They haven't played a great schedule. They did win at Dayton. Dayton hasn't played great of late, but they've showed that they can win away from home. I'll take VCU here as a team that, if they make the big dance, could win a couple games and shock some people.
I mean, hell yeah, dude. You know what's great about VCU is they're probably in the NCAA tournament, even if they don't win their conference, and gotta be shocked if they would leave them out. But they don't, unfortunately, they don't have the big wins, but they're ranked 28th on KenPom. They got a lot of like tier 2 wins and quadrant 2 type wins, right? You know, being in the Atlantic 10, you're going to get a lot of quadrant 2 games, and they are a scary as hell team to play. You know, Kyle, do you think they would leave them out if they, like, you know, lost their conference tournament?
I figure if they like lost the first game, they'd be in trouble because, you know, you got to win something in the conference tournament. But if they get a couple rounds in, semifinals or finals, I think they'd probably make it. But I just think that this is the type of team that's a tough matchup based on the turnovers they force, the type of defense they play, and they've kind of added in some of those shooters that they didn't used to have. So a nice, well-rounded team.
Very well-rounded. I get tough. It's tough for me in the totals because VCU can play very fast sometimes and play great defense. You can kind of see that in when you look on like KenPom, you see like average possession length is only 109th, 17.1 seconds, but opponents' average possession length is 18.6, which puts their tempo right in the middle at 231. And that's just because they play such good defense. Opponents can't shoot the ball. They have to hold it longer, pass, you know. But then again, VCU gets rolling. Sometimes they're the whole reason that the over hit themselves, you know, 80-56 against Davidson, right? You know, 80-72 against George Washington. You just got to hope that if you're betting unders, sometimes, Kyle, the other team doesn't score any points.
I don't like betting totals on VCU because I pretty much ruled this out. They can shut down the other team, but I mean, look at the Richmond game, 90-49. I mean, you hold a team to 49, it still flies over a total. That's pretty scary. So
it's frustrating.
I don't know what to do with their totals. I'd rather bet on them than I would bet on their totals. That's for sure.
Absolutely. And Rodney says, thanks, guys. That's what I came up with, and that's what I was asking on North Texas and the under, so it makes sense. Well, here we are, man. March Madness ahead of us. You have great stuff coming at Kyle Hunter Picks. What's going on over there?
Hey, I want to say thanks to the people who've tuned in too. I know our numbers have gone up quite a bit while we've been doing this. A lot of people jumping in the chat. We appreciate you guys. Fantastic. It makes it more fun for us when there's a lot of people paying attention and reaching out there via the chat as well. But huntersportspicks.com is the site. You can sign up for the free picks newsletter over there. I'll have some of those going out here through the tournaments. My pick package, as far as the March Madness deal, I'm going to put up a lower price for that tomorrow. So like kind of an early March Madness deal where you also get the conference tournaments. So look for that on Tuesday, the 4th. I'll have that up, and it's been a good run here of late. I think it's like 36-16 last 52 plays. So good run. College basketball was a bad start to the year. I've done well here of late. Hopefully we can keep it going here through the end of the season. Definitely check out what's going on at huntersportspicks.com and at Kyle Hunter Picks there on X.
Absolutely. Make sure you guys check that out. Rate, review, and subscribe. Kyle, 748 live viewers. That's pretty awesome. You know, if you have anything to tweet out, Kyle will definitely be tweeting out a lot of stuff coming out this week. And this show obviously comes out on the morning of Tuesday. So please feel free to retweet that if you can. But we really appreciate you listeners out there. And please get in our tournament challenges that Kyle's going to have, that I'm going to have as soon as these come out. Kyle, thanks again for coming on. We'll be talking to you soon.
Always fun, man. Thanks.